What's going on?
These things destroyed my world.
Snap tore a hole in our dimension. Now this threat is here. I need a new team.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and as requested, today we're going to be exploring the publication history of the enigmatic Mysterio, who is set to make his MCU debut in Spider-Man Far From Home. In this video, I'll be taking a look at his tumultuous relationship with Spider-Man, some of his exploits, his powers, or lack thereof, as well as his motivations and objectives, to give us a better idea of who he is and where he's coming from. I'll also be discussing what I think is going to be happening in the upcoming movie, so if you want to go into the film without any spoilers, go ahead and check out another one of my videos in the Marvel DC playlist, which I've left a link to below in the description. While the trailers and promotional material would have us believe that Mysterio was a good guy, aligning himself with Nick Fury and Spider-Man to stop the elementals that had supposedly destroyed his planet, all we need to do is take a quick look at his past exploits to realize that he's likely deceiving everyone.
Behold! Another purveyor of the poisons of progress that banish the old arts from this world.
Known formerly as Quentin Beck, he was a special effects expert and stuntman before taking on the moniker of Mysterio. Beck is essentially a recurring antagonist in Marvel Comics that functions as an enemy to Deadpool, Daredevil, and more specifically Spider-Man, whom he hates the most. He is in essence a villain that utilizes his years of experience doing special effects in film and TV to create illusions, tricks, and gadgets to facilitate his nefarious schemes. And since director John Watts has said his comic book appearances have been a significant inspiration for his depiction in the upcoming film, it's hard to assume that Mysterio will be anything other than deceptively villainous. I should also point out that much like many of the other characters in Marvel Comics, there have been many people that have taken on the mantle of Mysterio over the years to varying degrees of success. These include Daniel Burkhart, a second unknown character who called himself Mysterion, and Francis Klum, who is actually a mutant with the ability to teleport. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on Quentin Beck only, since he's the version of Mysterio that Jake Gyllenhaal will be portraying in the film. The son of Elmore and Henrietta Beck, Quentin was born in Riverside, California, and from a young age, the child had developed a deep love and fascination for films and the special effects that were employed in them, that temporarily tricked him into believing that what he was seeing was real. While his father thought he was wasting his time, his uncle Vinny gave the boy a camera and encouraged him to make his own home movies, and Quentin began honing his skills in visual trickery. His hobby was then transformed into a career after he attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, learning technical skills that would set him on his way. Becoming disillusioned and frustrated with the lack of recognition he was receiving for his work, the special effects expert, stuntman, and failed actor realized that his particular set of skills could be used to make him into a compelling villain. And so, Quentin began turning to a life of crime, aligning himself with the criminal Phineas Mason, aka the Tinkerer, who was a genius inventor, as featured in the Spectacular Spider-Man Volume 1, released in 1976. I should also mention that the Tinkerer was actually briefly seen in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, Mason had hoped to use his electronic equipment and bugs to steal valuable information from the government, and Beck used his special effects skills to make it look like the operation was being carried out by alien invaders. Unfortunately for both guys, the plan was ruined by Spider-Man, who forced them to leave, leading Quentin Beck to vow that he would beat him one day if it were the last thing he ever did. With regards to his powers, he doesn't actually have any, but where he lacked supernatural abilities, Beck made up for it with visual effects as a master of makeup, physical stunts, as well as mechanical and illusionary special effects. He was a brilliant inventor and engineer with advanced knowledge in robotics, a skilled chemist who understood how to effectively use hallucinogens, an organized strategist who meticulously planned all of his schemes, and he was also a great stuntman that had kept himself in peak physical form. Mysterio has a range of gadgets and equipment used to perform his mind-bending feats. His helmet is made of one-way plexiglass, meaning he can see out, but nobody could see in. The helmet also includes an air supply to protect him from his own gases, sonar to navigate within his mist cloak, and a holographic projector to create 3D illusions. His boots contain magnetic coil springs which allow him to leap great distances, as well as the ability to cling to surfaces. Mysterio has also created his own version of Spider-Man's webbing, including a gun that fires it, but he lacks the comprehensive knowledge of the specific formula Spider-Man uses. His costume contains nozzles in the boots and wrists that can release a constant stream of smoke that shields his movements, and he can mix other chemicals into this smoke screen for various effects. These include a gas that dulls and inhibits Spider-Man's spider sense, a gas that causes paralysis for 30 minutes, an abrasive that eats away Spider-Man's webbing, hypnogens that make those around him more susceptible to his will, and hallucinogens that can cause vivid hallucinations. The combination of the hypnogens and hallucinogens, along with his holographic projectors, are how Mysterio achieves most of his illusions. The costume sometimes also includes offensive weaponry, such as lasers or knockout gas nozzles in the eye emblems on his shoulders, or electric coils within his cape to electrocute those who touch it. He has extensive knowledge of hand-to-hand combat techniques learned from his time as a stuntman, allowing him to engage in combat with Spider-Man, despite his foe's superior physical abilities, and he also uses his skills at misdirection as a means of self-defense. On top of all of this, he has extensive knowledge of psychiatry and the psychological manipulation of others, and he could even use hypnotism as a means of getting into the heads of his enemies. One of the best examples of this would have to be his illusionary work in the Old Man Logan storyline, which I've covered on this channel in the past and will be leaving links to below. In it, Mysterio effortlessly tricks Wolverine into thinking that the Xavier Institute was under attack by many villains, leading him to pop his claws and lay waste to the numerous bad guys around him, only to find out that Mysterio had tricked him into killing all of his friends and basically the entire X-Men roster. While his first taste at crime life was through his work with the Tinkerer, his first appearance was actually in 1963 with the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 13, where Mysterio attempted to frame Spider-Man for robbing the Midtown Museum with illusions so convincing that even Spider-Man began to question whether he had unknowingly committed the deed. Not only were his apparitions lifelike, turning the city that once loved the web-slinging hero against him, but in their first confrontation, Mysterio was even able to beat Spider-Man by obstructing his spider senses with gas and dissolving his webbing with chemicals that made it look as though he actually had superpowers of his own. This distrust of the wall crawler was amplified by the negative editorials written by the Daily Bugle publisher J. Jonah Jameson. Exploiting Jonah's hatred for the web-slinger, Mysterio vowed to bring Spider-Man to justice. However, Mysterio was eventually defeated by the wall crawler, who also found evidence clearing his name of any wrongdoing. Shortly after this, Mysterio was recruited by Dr. Octopus as a charter member of the Sinister Six, which were a group of Spider-Man's deadliest foes, including the Vulture, Kraven the Hunter, Electro, and the Sandman. And despite his robotic duplicates of the X-Men, Mysterio was defeated quickly, as were the rest of the Sinister Six. His constant defeats at the hands of Spider-Man caused Quentin to develop low self-esteem, and it wasn't until he began reading J. Jonah Jameson's harsh editorials about Spider-Man that he began finding confidence to become Mysterio again. In the Web Spinners Tales of Spider-Man Volumes 1 to 3, Beck used a virtual reality projector to make Times Square look like ancient Egypt, to facilitate another one of his schemes to become wealthy and discredit the web-slinger. But despite his engineering prowess, Mysterio was eventually defeated once again thanks to Spider-Man. Mysterio then threatened to cause a major disaster to draw out Spider-Man, and during the ensuing battle, Beck knocked out Spider-Man using one of his potent gases. When Spider-Man woke up, he was led to believe that Mysterio managed to shrink him and trap him in a model of an amusement park. However, Spider-Man quickly deduced that Mysterio was actually operating from a massive animatronic body and that he wasn't shrunk down in size at all, and he easily defeated Beck once more.
You've progressed farther than I imagined, but now to all good things must come an end. For the fortune you gaze upon is your doom at the hands of Mysterio! Goodbye, Spider-Man.
Stop!
Hello, payday. That was disappointing. No witty repartee? I expected more.
From kidnapping She-Hulk, conspiring to defraud people living in nursing homes, to even holding the staff of the Daily Bugle hostage, you know, the place that Spider-Man happened to work, Mysterio would see his plans continuously fail to humiliating effect at the hands of Parker, solidifying his hatred of the web-slinger. It wasn't until Mysterio began taking a darker route by killing numerous people and doing other unspeakable things in the 8-issue Daredevil story arc, Guardian Angel, that he began making real waves in the criminal underworld. In the trailers for Spider-Man Far From Home, Beck explains that he is from an alternate universe where the elementals had destroyed his home planets, and in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, Mysterio actually creates a device that allowed him to access an alternate reality where Spider-Man was still a teenager, and he decides to use that world as his plaything. I think the MCU Mysterio is following a similar trajectory. Having said that, it's also possible that he isn't from an alternate reality, and that he was actually lying about that too. But considering the MCU is heading into its next phase, which will likely see the introduction of multiversal threats like Galactus and other cosmic entities, I can't see why they would mention the multiverse for the first time, only for it to amount to nothing. All that aside, one thing I'm almost certain about is the fact that he cannot be trusted. Don't believe me? Check out the back of the Mysterio action figure that is about to be released in tandem with the film. The description literally says he is a master of illusions and a sworn enemy of Spider-Man.
Dude.
Well, that's all for today, folks. A big thanks to all of you guys who requested a deep dive into Mysterio's origins in the comics. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, Fury asked me to come up here and see how you were doing. He felt bad about snapping at you.
Really?
You guys do have sarcasm on this earth, right?
There's a part of me that wants me to tell you to just turn around, run away from all this, and then there's another part of me that knows what we're about to fight, what's at stake. And I'm glad you're here.